We weren't supposed to be there. I don't mean that in the fake spooky way people say it after they sneak into somewhere boring and post it on TikTok. I mean like the place itself had rules, like the ground had boundaries, and we hopped them like idiots because Evan couldn't stand being told no, even by a fence with rusted spikes and a closed after dusk sign bolted into it. Evan had that kind of energy where everything was a dare. Not even a dare aimed at someone else, just a constant itch under his skin. He was 22 and already acted like he was running out of time. He'd do shit like walk into a hotel through the side entrance just to see if anyone stopped him. He'd hit the employees' only door at a grocery store and laugh when it opened. He treated rules like they were party streamers. Rip them, wrap them around your neck, dance with them until they snapped. I followed him because I always did. That's the part that makes me angry now, years later, because people like to act like the follower is some innocent victim. I wasn't. I had my own poison. I liked being close to Evan because he made everything feel sharper. He made the air feel charged, like a storm was always 10 minutes away. I was the guy who stood near the ledge and told myself I wouldn't jump, but I liked how my stomach dropped when I leaned forward. The cemetery was on the far edge of town, not the pretty one with marble angels and guided tours. This one was older, sunk into itself, half surrounded by scrubby trees that never seemed to fully lose their leaves. Most of the stones were low and cracked and tilted like bad teeth. The fence ran along the road, then dipped behind a line of pines and disappeared into darkness. There was one street light across the road that buzzed and blinked like it was tired. Evan didn't even hesitate. He grabbed the top of the fence with both hands and hauled himself up like he'd been doing it his whole life. "Come on," he said, already swinging one leg over. "It's not a prison. It's a cemetery," I said, like that should have mattered. He snorted. "So, everyone inside is already dead." I hate that line now. It's the kind of cheap, dumb confidence you can't take back. I climbed after him. The metal was colder than it looked. My palm stuck to it for half a second like it wanted to keep me. When I dropped down the other side, gravel shifted under my shoes, and a bunch of tiny stones skittered away with this whispery sound that made my skin tighten. Evan shined his flashlight around like a kid in a haunted house. His beam cut over headstones and tree trunks and the uneven path. My flashlight stayed low because I didn't want to see too much at once. I wanted to keep my world small. A few feet ahead, my shoes, where I was stepping. The gate was chained shut even though we were already inside. The chain was thick and bright in our light, like a warning that came too late. "See," Evan said, nodding at it. "They lock it. That means nobody comes in. That means nobody's going to catch us." "That's not what that means," I said. He ignored me. He always did when I said anything that wasn't encouragement. We started down the main gravel path, the one that curved through rows of stones. The crunch under our shoes was loud in a way I didn't like. It felt disrespectful, like we were stepping on someone's living room floor in muddy boots. Evan kicked a pebble ahead of him and laughed quietly, not because anything was funny, but because he liked hearing his own fear come out as humor. He kept glancing around, looking for something to react to. A shape, a shadow, anything that could justify the stupid thrill he dragged me out here for. I kept thinking about how this cemetery looked from the road during the day. Ordinary, sun-bleached, sod. When you were inside it at night, the same place felt deeper, like it went down instead of out. The trees along the edges didn't feel like a border. They felt like a wall leaning in. "Relax," Evan said, like he could read my shoulders tightening. "It's just a bunch of rocks." I didn't answer because if I opened my mouth, I'd either sound scared or sound like I wanted to go home, and both would have made Evan grin. The air changed the farther we went. Not colder exactly, just heavier, like walking into a room where someone had been crying. You can't always explain what you're picking up, but your body picks it up anyway. The smell wasn't dirt or grass. It was dry, dusty, stone that had been wet once and dried wrong. Evan's beam swept across a low building near the path, more like a shed than anything else, with a small window and a door that had a combination lock on it. There was a sign nailed above it that said maintenance in faded black letters. Bet there's stuff in there, Evan said, instantly excited because of course he was. Locked, I said. He walked up anyway and grabbed the handle. It didn't budge. He shook it harder, as if the door might get embarrassed and open out of pity. Stop, I hissed. You're gonna make noise. There's nobody, he said, and he shook it again. That's when I saw the paper. It was laminated, taped to the wall beside the door, half peeled at one corner. The tape had gone yellow. The paper itself looked newer than the rest of the place, like someone had printed it within the last few years and stuck it up hoping it would matter. Evan didn't care. I did, because it was something official in a place that felt unofficial. A thing made by a living person for other living people. I stepped closer and angled my flashlight at it. It wasn't titled Rules in a friendly way. It was titled like an instruction sheet you'd see in a factory where people lose fingers. Night closure / after hours incident notes. Read before entering grounds after dusk. Under was a list, 7 items, each one bolded like it mattered. My first thought was that it was for staff. Groundskeepers. Security. People who had to be there. The second thought was that it didn't say staff only, and that felt intentional. Evan noticed me reading and leaned over my shoulder with this little ooh sound, like I'd found a treasure map. Look at this, I said, and my voice came out lower than I meant. He read aloud in a mocking voice at first, but he slowed down halfway through like something in the wording snagged him. Rule 1. Do not enter any structure on the grounds after dusk. This includes mausoleums, storage buildings, and family vaults. If a door is open, leave it open and walk away. Rule 2. If you hear whispering, do not respond. Do not acknowledge it. Do not answer questions, even if you recognize the voice. Rule 3. If you become disoriented or loop back to a familiar marker, stop walking. Stand still and count your breaths to 30. Do not look up while counting. Rule 4. Do not use your flashlight beam to look through any gap, crack, or keyhole. Use indirect light only. Bounce off ground or stone. Rule 5. If you smell something sweet, flowers, perfume, incense, keep walking at a steady pace. Do not run. Do not stop to locate the source. Rule 6. If you see someone you did not arrive with, do not approach them. Do not allow them to approach you. Put a solid object between you and them. Rule 7. If you must leave quickly, do not go back the way you came. Exit through the south fence break near the service road. The main gate will not open for you. Evan finished reading and just stood there for a second, the beam of his flashlight drifting off the paper and onto the dirt like his hand got tired. Then he laughed, sharp and forced. What the fuck is this? Halloween, he said. It's weird, I said. It's for teenagers, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. Like us. We're not supposed to be here. And yet, here we are, he said, and he slapped the laminated sheet with the back of his fingers like it was a joke. The plastic made this hollow, stiff sound. Rule 2, don't answer whispers. Rule 3, count your breaths. Rule 4, don't look through cracks. They're trying to make it spooky so people don't hop the fence. I kept looking at Rule 1. Do not enter any structure. If a door is open, leave it open and walk away. That phrasing got under my skin. It didn't say close it behind you. It said leave it open. Like closing it would be the mistake. Evan turned and started down the path again before I was done reading. I followed because that's what I did, but I snapped a picture of the rules with my phone first, like proof I wasn't imagining them. My camera flash didn't go off. I wasn't stupid enough for that. As I walked, my phone screen lit my hand, and I noticed something stuck to the back of my case. A little yellow square. A Post-it. I stopped and peeled it off. It was old enough that the glue had gone crusty. I didn't remember it being there earlier, but I also wasn't the kind of person who checked my phone case for stray paper every day. There were 3 words written on it in messy black ink, like someone had scrawled them in a hurry. Don't look up. My throat tightened. I looked up anyway, because I'm an idiot and because the human brain hates being told not to do something. All I saw were branches tangled overhead, patches of night sky, the flashlight beam sliding over needles. Nothing moved. Nothing reached down. Nothing obvious. Evan noticed I'd stopped and turned back with impatience already on his face. "What now?" "Nothing," I said, and I shoved the post-it into my pocket without thinking. I didn't show him. I didn't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to give the night more power. Maybe because I didn't want Evan to laugh at it and make me feel stupid. Maybe because some part of me suddenly felt like that little scrap of paper was meant for me, specifically, and if I shared it, it would stop being mine. We kept going. The whispering started so soft, I convinced myself it was the gravel. The sound of our steps. The wind pushing dry leaves along stone. A thin breath that rose and fell. Evan didn't hear it at first, or he pretended not to. He was more interested in the layout, the way the paths split and curved. He kept trying to find the oldest looking graves, the ones with names you couldn't read anymore. He liked imagining the dates. He liked saying things like, "Damn, imagine dying in 1870. No Netflix, just sickness and horses." I didn't laugh. The whispering kept coming back, always at the edge of hearing, like someone talking behind a wall. Sometimes it sounded like a single word. Sometimes it sounded like a lot of words layered together, too many mouths. I kept turning my head slightly, trying to triangulate it, and every time I did, it shifted like it didn't want to be found. Rule 2. If you hear whispering, do not respond. Do not acknowledge it. Do not answer questions, even if you recognize the voice. I told myself it was ridiculous to remember a laminated sheet taped to a maintenance shed. Then my stomach clenched anyway. We passed a section where the stones were newer, lined up cleaner. There were little solar lights stuck in the ground in front of some dead and dark now. Plastic flowers. A child's toy car half buried in dirt. Evan slowed and shined his light on the toy. "That's sad," he said, and for a second he sounded like a normal human being. Then he straightened up and the thrill came back into his voice. "This place is huge. There's got to be a vault or something. Like a real one." I didn't answer because I was listening. The whispering changed. It got closer. Not louder, just closer, like it slid from the trees to right behind my ear. I stopped walking without meaning to. Evan took 3 more steps before he realized I wasn't beside him. He turned, annoyed again. "What?" I thought I heard. I started, then stopped because saying it out loud felt like breaking rule 2. Like acknowledging it was a form of responding. Evan rolled his eyes hard enough I could see it in the flashlight beam. "You're freaking yourself out." "Maybe," I said, because that was easier than arguing. He walked back toward me and nudged my shoulder with his. "Come on, we'll find the creepy part. That's the whole point, right?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say the whole point was that this was stupid and I didn't want to be here. Instead, I kept moving. The path started to feel wrong after that. Not physically wrong, like we were lost. More like the cemetery didn't want to be mapped. We'd walk past a particular stone with a carved lamb. Then 5 minutes later, we'd pass it again from a different angle. Evan joked about it at first. "Deja vu," he said. "Spooky." Then it happened again, and his joke faded. He shined his light on the lamb like it might explain itself. "Did we loop?" I asked. "All these rows look the same," he said automatically, but his voice had a little crack in it. Rule 3. If you become disoriented or loop back to a familiar marker, stop walking. Stand still and count your breaths to 30. Do not look up while counting. I didn't want to say it because I didn't want Evan to know the rules were in my head like scripture, but my body already wanted to obey. It wanted to stop. It wanted to plant my feet and stop feeding energy into whatever this place was. I slowed. Evan kept walking. "Wait," I said. He turned back with that. "Are you serious?" "Look." "What?" "Just hold up a second." "For what?" "I don't know. Just," I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "Just a second." He stared at me, then sighed like I was the most exhausting thing in his life. "Fine." 1 second. We stood there between stones. The wind moved through the trees in uneven bursts. The whispering hovered at the edge of hearing, like someone breathing through teeth. I counted in my head. 1 breath. 2. 3. I kept my eyes down because the post-it in my pocket felt heavier now, like it was pushing against my thigh through the fabric, reminding me. On breath 12, Evan shifted his weight and muttered, "This is dumb." On breath 19, something brushed my shoulder. Not a hand, not a branch. Something like cold air moving against skin in a way air shouldn't. Like a finger made of winter. I froze so hard my teeth hurt. Evan didn't notice. On breath 23, the whispering stopped completely. The silence that followed wasn't normal silence. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was like sound got pulled away, like someone closed the door on the world. On breath 30, I exhaled and the normal night noises came back in a rush. Leaves, distant traffic, our own breathing. Evan blew out a dramatic breath. "Happy?" "No," I said honestly. He shook his head and started walking again. I followed because my legs were already moving on their own, and because stopping didn't erase what I'd felt. It only made me feel like prey. We turned down a narrower path, lined with older stones. The trees overhead pressed closer together, branches tangling, blocking out what little sky glow there was. Our flashlights were the only clean light. Everything else was shadow. That's when we saw it. At the far end of the path, past a cluster of tall headstones, stood a mausoleum bigger than anything else around it. Pale stone, worn and stained. No statues, no angels, just a rectangular block with a pitched roof, like a small house someone built for the dead. The door wasn't fully shut. It sat slightly ajar, a thin black gap down one side. Evan grinned like he'd just found a prize. "Now that," he said, "is interesting." My stomach dropped so fast I almost stumbled. Rule 1. Do not enter any structure on the grounds after dusk. If a door is open, leave it open and walk away. I didn't say it. I didn't want to sound like I was scared of a laminated sheet. But my body was already backing away. My shoulders tightened. My hands went sweaty around the flashlight. Evan walked toward it like it was calling him. "Evan," I said, and my voice came out sharper than I meant. "Don't." He didn't even turn. It's a mausoleum. That's the whole point. The door's open. So, maybe somebody forgot. He shined his flashlight over the stone. The beam slid across the surface, catching the etched name above the doorway. The letters were shallow with age, like the stone had been slowly eating them. I got closer because being farther away felt worse. If Evan did something stupid, I wanted to be close enough to grab him. Up close, the mausoleum looked plain and wrong at the same time. The stone wasn't carved with flowers or family crests. It was just blank, like the builder didn't want to leave anything for you to identify it by. Like it wasn't meant to be remembered, only found. Evan leaned toward the gap in the door, angling his flashlight inside. Rule 4. Do not use your flashlight beam to look through any gap, crack, or keyhole. Use indirect light only. I opened my mouth to tell him that, and then I stopped because what the hell would I say? "Hey, remember that creepy rules poster? It said don't do that." He'd laugh. He'd do it harder just to prove me wrong. So I didn't say anything. His beam cut into the darkness inside, and the darkness didn't reflect it back the way it should have. Normally, even an empty room gives you some bounce. A hint of wall, a hint of floor. This just swallowed the light, like the inside was deeper than the outside could possibly allow. "Doesn't look like much," Evan said. I was about to agree just to get him away from it when something moved at the edge of the opening. At first my brain tried to label it as a trick of shadow, because that's what brains do. They protect you. They lie to you so you can keep functioning. Then it shifted again, and my protection snapped. Pale fingers curled over the inner edge of the stone, just visible in the gap. Not a whole hand, just fingertips. The nails looked too clean, too smooth, like they'd never scraped dirt. The fingers twitched once, then slid back into the darkness like someone pulling a curtain. I sucked in a breath so hard it hurt. "Evan," I said. He turned, annoyed. "What?" The doorway was empty again. Just shadow. Just stone. The gap sat there like a mouth that had stopped smiling. My throat tightened. The words felt stupid already. I thought I saw something. He laughed, quick and dismissive. You're seeing ghosts. Congrats. I saw fingers. I snapped because being laughed at made my fear turn into anger. Sure, he said, and he leaned closer to the gap like he was trying to catch the fingers doing an encore. Maybe it's a raccoon. In a mausoleum? Why not? He glanced back at me with that grin, the one that said, come on, don't be boring. You want to leave, go wait by the fence. I'll be 2 seconds. No, I said. We came together. Then stop being weird. I hate how simple it was. How easy it is to bully someone into danger with a few words. We moved on, but we didn't go far. Evan walked away from the mausoleum like he was leaving it alone, but his body kept angling back toward it. Every time the path split, he picked the direction that curved in a way that would bring us near it again. He didn't say he was doing it. He didn't have to. The cemetery started to feel like it was rearranging itself. The stones repeated. The trees repeated. We'd pass a cracked obelisk with a bird nest in the top. Then later we'd pass it again, and Evan would swear under his breath. This is stupid, he muttered, not to me, but to the place. We ended up back in front of the mausoleum without either of us admitting that's what we were doing. The door was still ajar. Evan stopped and stared at it like it had one. I'm just going to take a quick look, he said, and his voice had that edge it got when he'd already decided and didn't want anyone interfering. 2 seconds. Don't, I said immediately. He didn't even pretend to consider it. He stepped up and slid his shoulder against the door, pushing it open just enough to slip through. What the fuck? I hissed, grabbing for his jacket. My hand closed on fabric, and then it was gone, like he moved out of my reach faster than my brain could track. He disappeared into the gap, and the sound changed. I'm not saying everything went dead silent like a movie. I'm saying the sound of Evan scraping against the stone as he went in stopped too cleanly. Like someone cut the audio. Like the mausoleum swallowed, not just light, but noise. Evan, I whispered because even raising my voice felt wrong. No answer. I waited, staring at the doorway. My flashlight beam shook over the stone, over the gap. My heart hammered in my throat like it wanted out. Evan, I said again louder. Nothing. I stood there longer than I meant to. My brain kept offering normal explanations like treats to a panicking dog. He's messing with you. He's hiding. He's waiting for you to freak out so he can jump out and laugh. But the longer it went, the less those explanations fit. Evan loved attention. If he was messing with me, he'd be making noise. He'd be whispering my name. He'd be laughing. Instead, the cemetery continued like nothing was wrong. Wind in the trees, leaves shifting along stone. A distant car passing on the road, the sound muffled by the trees. Normal sounds that should have been comforting. They weren't. I stepped closer to the doorway without meaning to. I didn't want to. My feet did it anyway, like my body was trying to resolve the uncertainty, to look inside and prove to itself that Evan was still in there. Rule 4. Do not use your flashlight beam to look through any gap, crack, or keyhole. My hand tightened around the flashlight. My beam pointed down now, bouncing weak light off the gravel and up toward the doorway like the rule suggested. Indirect. Safe. As if safety existed here. The inside stayed wrong. The darkness didn't behave like a room. It behaved like a hole. Evan, I said again, and my voice cracked. Stop. Still nothing. The whispering came back. Not from inside the mausoleum. Not from behind me. Not from any one place. It drifted around me like smoke, thin fragments of sound that slid past my ears and vanished before my brain could catch them. I froze. My shoulders went rigid. My eyes burned with the urge to turn in circles to find the source. Rule 2. If you hear whispering, do not respond. Do not acknowledge it. I clamped my jaw shut so hard my teeth ached. The whispering shifted and, for a second, just a second, it sounded like my name. Not even saying it. Not a stranger. My name, spoken the way my mother used to say it when she was tired and try not to sound scared. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard, refusing to answer, refusing to even whisper, "What?" Because the rule felt like a line drawn in blood now. The whispering stopped. The silence that followed felt intentional, like the cemetery held its breath to see what I'd do next. My skin prickled. I felt watched, not in the dramatic ghost's way, but in the animal way. Like eyes behind leaves, like something waiting for movement. Then the wind shifted. It brushed against my back instead of my face, and it carried a smell that made my stomach twist. Dry, stale stone. Old air, like a basement that had been sealed up for years and then cracked open. My feet stepped away from the doorway without asking permission. I didn't even realize I was backing up until I felt gravel shift under my heel. That's when I saw the post-it again, not the one in my pocket. Another one. It was stuck to the stone beside the doorway, right at eye level, like someone had placed it there on purpose. Yellow square. Black ink. Don't look up. My blood ran cold. I stared at it. And in that stare, the mausoleum felt less like a building and more like a mouth someone had dressed in stone. The post, it felt like a warning left by someone who'd stood exactly where I was standing now, with the same stupid flashlight, the same stupid hope that their friend was just messing around. I backed up farther, and then, hey, I spun so hard my flashlight beam jerked wild across stones. Evan was standing behind me, close enough that I startled and almost swung the flashlight at his face like a weapon. "There you are," I said, and relief hit me so hard it made me dizzy. "What the hell was that?" "I'm here," he said. His voice sounded normal. Flat, maybe, but normal enough that my brain tried to settle. "You're an asshole," I said, laughing shakily because that's what my body did when it didn't know whether to cry or fight. "I was calling you." He stared at me, didn't blink. The beam of my flashlight caught the dust on his jacket. One sleeve was smeared with pale grit like he'd dragged it along stone. His hair looked slightly damp at the roots, which didn't make sense because the night wasn't wet. His eyes were open wider than usual, like he was trying not to miss anything. "Did you hear me?" I asked. He hesitated, just a fraction too long. "Yeah." "You didn't answer." "I was farther in than I thought," he said, and his tone was casual, but something in the way he said farther made my stomach drop. Like farther was a place, not a distance. Like you could go farther in and not necessarily come back out the same way. "You shouldn't have gone in there." I snapped because anger felt safer than fear. He took a step closer. The cemetery seemed to lean with him, like it wanted us closer together. "You should come see," Evan said. "It explains things." "No," I said immediately. "I want to leave." His mouth twitched like he might smile, but it didn't fully form. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being smart," I said, and I hated how my voice shook. "We're leaving. Right now." He stepped closer again. Rule 6. If you see someone you did not arrive with, do not approach them. Do not allow them to approach you. Put a solid object between you and them. I stared at his face, and my brain did something ugly. It tried to decide whether Evan counted as someone I arrived with. Technically, yes. But the way he stood, the way his eyes didn't blink, the way the air around him smelled faintly sweet now, like cheap perfume or crushed flowers, made Rule 6 flare in my mind like a siren. Rule 5. If you smell something sweet, flowers, perfume, incense, keep walking at a steady pace. Do not run. Do not stop to locate the source. Deceptively safe, the kind of rule that sounds like it's about not tripping over a headstone in panic. Except now, with Evan inches closer, it sounded like something else. Like running was what the place wanted. Evan's hand brushed my sleeve. His fingers were cold. Not he's been outside cold. Cold like metal. Cold like the underside of the stone you lift up in winter. I flinched back. His hand snapped out and closed around my wrist. Not tight at first, just sure. Like a clamp settling into place. "You're taking too long," he said, and his voice dipped, not louder, but heavier. Like the words had weight, like they were meant to sink into me. My breath caught. My body flashed hot and then cold. "Let go," I said, and my voice came out hard because panic turns into aggression when it needs to. Evan's grip tightened. The bones in my wrist pressed together painfully. My skin prickled where his fingers touched, like my nerves were reacting to something that wasn't human temperature. "Come on," he said, and it wasn't suggestion. "Just look." Behind him, the mausoleum door sat open wider now, like it had been pushed. The gap looked darker than before, deeper, wronger. The post-it on the stone seemed to glow in the edge of my beam. "Don't look up." My pocket felt heavy again. Like the first post, it was burning through the fabric. I yanked my arm back hard enough my shoulder popped. Evan didn't move with me. He moved after me, matching my distance without stepping, like the space between us was adjustable on his terms. I twisted again, and this time I felt his fingers slip just for a split second. That was it. That was the crack. I ripped free and ran. I didn't run toward the gate because Rule 7 screamed in my head. If you must leave quickly, do not go back the way you came. Exit through the south fence break near the service road. The main gate will not open for you. I didn't even know where south was. I just ran the way my body chose, which was down a path between stones, then off the path entirely, kicking through patches of dead grass and leaves. My flashlight beam bounced wildly, catching names and dates in flashes. My breath tore out of me in ugly bursts. I didn't hear footsteps behind me. That was worse than being chased. Because if Evan wasn't running, what was? Or was he just there, sliding closer without sound the way he had when he grabbed my wrist? The paths twisted. The cemetery folded. I saw the lamb stone again, then the cracked obelisk, then the lamb again like I was trapped in a looped hallway. Rule 3. Stop walking. Count your breaths. Do not look up. I tried. I really tried. I slowed for half a second, feet sliding on gravel, lungs burning, and I started counting. 1. A whisper hissed right beside my ear. So close, I felt the dampness of breath against skin. I bolted again. Screw the rules. Screw counting. Screw being still when something was right behind me. I ran until my legs shook and my vision narrowed, until the flashlight beam became a frantic cone of light, and everything outside it felt like teeth. I burst into a clearing where the graves stood farther apart, like someone had left a patch of ground empty on purpose. The trees thinned slightly. The sky looked lower. The air smelled sweet now, not floral exactly, more like something burned. Incense. Rule 5. Keep walking at a steady pace. Do not run. I slowed instinctively because the rule yanked on me like a leash. My body wanted to obey because my body wanted any sense of control. I walked, gasping, trying to steady my steps, trying not to look like prey. That's when I saw them. At first, they were just shapes between stones. Tall, too narrow, like people standing still with their arms at their sides. Then my flashlight beam hit one square in the chest, and the shape didn't react. Didn't flinch, didn't blink. It just stood there, angled slightly toward me like it was waiting. More shapes stood farther back, half hidden by headstones. They weren't moving, but the feeling of attention coming off them made my skin crawl, like being watched by a crowd that knew your name. I turned slowly, trying to put stones between me and them like Rule 6 said, but the clearing was open. There wasn't enough solid cover, just low markers and thin obelisks. I swung my light back toward where I'd come from, and near the mausoleum, Evan, standing upright, too still. My heart slammed, so hard it hurt. "Evan," I shouted because the rules were gone now, burned away by adrenaline and disbelief. "Evan, stop." He didn't answer. He didn't move. He was too far for me to see his face clearly, but I could see his outline against the pale stone of the mausoleum. His arms hung at his sides. His head was slightly tilted, like he was listening. Behind him, in the darkness of the open door, something shifted. Not stepping out, not fully visible, just a change in the blackness, like a curtain stirring. My flashlight beam rose, shaking, crawling up his body, and I saw his jacket, and I saw the way it hung wrong, and I saw something pale behind him that didn't match the shape of a human arm. My breath caught in my throat like a choke. The beam climbed higher. The beam climbed higher, and my brain kept trying to fix what it was seeing, like if it found the right angle, it would turn back into a normal thing. Evan's jacket wasn't just dusty. It was split along the side, torn open like somebody yanked it hard and didn't care what it ruined. The fabric hung off him in strips. His shirt underneath was darker in weird patches. Not just dirt dark, but wet dark like something had soaked in and dried wrong. I took another step forward without meaning to, because my body still hadn't accepted that the thing standing near the mausoleum might not be Evan anymore. My feet wanted proof. My eyes want to land on his face and see some stupid smirk, see him lift his hands and go boo so I could punch him and we could go home. My flashlight trembled and the circle of light hopped over his chest. There was a gap, not like a rip in clothing, a literal gap, a hollow, black shape where ribs should have been behind skin. The light hit bone, white and clean in a way bone shouldn't look in the open air like it had been scrubbed. The ribs weren't just visible. They were arranged, spread, pulled apart like a door being held open. The inside was not full of organs and gore the way you expect when you think dead body, because I swear to you, that would have almost made more sense. There was space in him. There was emptiness, like his chest had been scooped. I made a sound, not a word, just this tight, involuntary noise that came out of my throat because my body realized it was about to throw up and try to stop itself. Then I saw what was holding him. Hands, not one pair, multiple. Pale, long-fingered hands coming from behind him, hooked into his torso like the thing behind him was using him as a puppet. Fingers were sunk deep under his ribs, knuckles pressed against bone, nails buried where no nails should be. The hands didn't shake from effort. They were steady, like they'd been made for this. Evan's head tilted slightly as my light reached it. His throat was ruined. It wasn't a clean cut. It looked like something had worried at it. Like teeth, like a mouth that didn't care about shape, only access. The skin was torn back and the inside of his neck was open to air. He shouldn't have been standing. He shouldn't have been anything except collapsed in a heap. But his eyes were open. That's the part that wrecks me when I try to sleep. His eyes were open and dead. Not just not blinking dead. Dead like there was nothing behind them. Like the part that makes a person had been turned off and left. I couldn't move. My legs locked, my knees buzzing like they might fold. The flashlight beam wobbled and flashed over the pale hands again, and for a second I saw the thing behind him more clearly. It wasn't fully out of the doorway. It stayed half inside the mausoleum like it didn't want to commit to the air. But I saw enough. A shape taller than Evan, hunched slightly to fit the frame. Skin that looked stretched, not like muscle and fat under it. Just tight, pale surface over angles. Its head was wrong, too narrow, like it had been pressed. I didn't get a clean look at its face. Every time I tried, my brain slid away from it like oil. I got impressions instead. A mouth that was too wide, teeth that weren't even, something wet that reflected light for a split second and made my stomach flip. The pale hands lifted Evan's right arm. Not gently, not like helping him wave, like moving a stick. Evan's arm rose, elbow bending in a jerky, controlled arc, and then it waved. Two slow sweeps, like someone practicing being friendly. I didn't scream. I don't know why. Maybe my body already knew screaming was pointless. Maybe the cemetery didn't allow that kind of noise to matter. I just turned and ran, and my muscles finally listened because flight is easier than comprehension. I ran across the clearing, and the figures between the stones didn't step aside. They didn't chase either. They just watched. They stood too tall, too straight, like posts with attention. My flashlight beam swung over one, and the light didn't reflect off a face. It reflected off something smooth where skin should have had texture. The shape angled toward me slightly, like it was tracking my movement. The sweet smell thickened. It wasn't pleasant anymore. It was cloying, like flowers left in a hot car, like perfume sprayed to cover rot. Rule 5 hit my mind again, not as a suggestion, but as a threat. Keep walking at a steady pace. Do not run. I was running anyway. My lungs burned. My throat tasted metallic. I could feel my heartbeat in my teeth. The ground dipped, and I almost ate shit on a tilted headstone half buried in leaves. I caught myself on my hands and felt cold dirt smear my palms. My flashlight went skittering, beams spinning, making the cemetery strobe in frantic slices of light. I grabbed it and kept going, not even standing all the way upright, just scrambling like an animal. Behind me, there were still no footsteps, but the whispering came back. It didn't sound like a crowd now. It sounded like one voice splitting itself up, speaking from multiple angles at once so my brain couldn't locate it. Hey, wait, come back. My name. Not a perfect copy, but close enough to make my gut clench. Rule 2. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge it. I kept my mouth shut, so hard my jaw cramped. I breathed through my nose in ragged snorts. I focused on action. Feet, light, stones. Don't fall. Don't look back. And then I looped. I knew it because the lamb headstone appeared in my beam again, dead ahead, the same cracked carving, the same smear of moss like a bruise on stone. I'd run in a straight line. I'd felt it. My legs were screaming straight line. And yet there it was, waiting as if I'd never left it. No, I whispered before I could stop myself. The whispering paused like it enjoyed that. Like I'd answered. Rule 3. Stop walking. Count your breaths to 30. Do not look up while counting. My body wanted to obey again. It wanted to stop and count and pretend there was a procedure for surviving impossible shit. I staggered to a halt beside the lamb stone. My chest heaved. Saliva flooded my mouth. The prelude to vomiting. I started counting breaths because I didn't know what else to do. 1, 2. On 3, the air changed. The pressure shifted like a big object moving close without making sound. On 5, the sweet smell got stronger. On 8, something clicked somewhere nearby. Not a twig, not a footstep, a click like a tongue against teeth. I kept my eyes down. I stared at gravel and dead leaves and the cracked base of the lamb stone. 10, 11, 12. The whispering started again, softer now, intimate. You're doing it right. A voice like Evan's, but smoother, flatter, like someone reading his lines off a card. Good job. My throat tightened. My stomach churned. 15, 16. The whispering shifted into something else. A sound like fabric sliding over stone. A faint scrape. 18, 19. I had the strongest, stupidest urge to look up. Not curiosity, compulsion. Like if I didn't look up, something would happen that I couldn't prevent. Like looking up was a duty. Don't look up. The post-it screamed in my pocket. 20, 21. A shadow moved across the gravel in front of me. Not my shadow. My flashlight beam was angled low. The shadow was long and thin, and it fell over the stones like a finger. I didn't look up. I locked my eyes on the ground like it was a promise. 24, 25. The whispering stopped. The silence that followed pushed into my ears like pressure, like being underwater. 27, 28. On 29, my phone in my pocket buzzed once, a small vibration against my thigh. It shouldn't have. No service, no notifications, nothing. It buzzed anyway like something nudged it. 30. I exhaled hard. Normal sound rushed back in, leaves, distant traffic, my own ragged breathing. I didn't wait. I started walking, not running. Walking steady because Rule 5 said don't run and Rule 7 said the gate wouldn't open, and I didn't know which rules mattered more, but I knew running was making the cemetery fold on me. I walked like I was trying to look casual for a cop, except there were no cops, just stones and trees and those motionless shapes watching from the dark. I kept my flashlight angled down, bouncing light off the ground like Rule 4 said, because the last time I pointed it straight into a gap, I saw fingers. I saw Evan's body being worn like a coat. I didn't want to invite anything else. As I walked, the paths did their twisting thing again. They tried to pull me toward familiar markers. The lamb stone fell away behind me. I passed an obelisk. I passed a cluster of new graves with plastic flowers. I passed a bench with peeling green paint. My head throbbed with the effort of not panicking. My hand shook so hard the flashlight beam jittered. My palm stung where I'd fallen. My lungs burned, and every breath felt like it scraped. I forced myself to think about the rule sheet. The south fence break near the service road, not the main gate. Exit through the south fence break. I didn't know where south was, but I knew where the road was by sound. The traffic was distant, but it was there. A low, constant hiss. If I could find that direction, I could find the edge. If I could find the edge, maybe I could find a break. The whispering tried again, this time not like Evan. This time like a stranger with a patient voice. You can come with us. You don't have to be alone. We're right here. I kept walking. My phone buzzed again, short and sharp. I ignored it. I wasn't pulling my phone out in the middle of that cemetery. Not with my hands shaking, not with the air pressing in. The thought of the screen lighting my face, making me visible, made my skin crawl. I kept moving until I saw the maintenance shed again. I stopped so fast my shoes slid on gravel. It was impossible. I'd left that side of the cemetery. I'd run. Idebalka. But the shed was there, the same small building with the maintenance sign and the combination lock and the laminated rule sheet half peeled at the corner. The paper was still taped there, shining dull in my flashlight beam. For a second, seeing it made me want to laugh. This stupid piece of office plastic was the only thing in the place that felt like it belonged to human life. It felt like seeing a vending machine in the middle of a forest. Then my phone buzzed again, and something cold slid down my spine. I pulled my phone out before I could stop myself because my brain had latched onto the idea that the buzz meant something. Maybe service, maybe a call, maybe help. The screen lit, harsh and white against the dark. There was no incoming call. There was a notification banner, but not from any app one recognized. It was a photo preview. The image was the picture I'd taken of the rule sheet earlier. The exact shot, the same angle, the same glare in one corner. Except the photo preview had a new yellow square in it, stuck over Rule 3, like someone had physically placed it on the paper. Don't look up. My stomach lurched. My thumbs went numb. The phone almost slipped out of my hand. I flicked into my camera roll so fast I fumbled it twice. The rules photo was there. Same timestamp from earlier. Same everything. But now, when I opened it, the post-it was in the image, perfectly aligned like it had always been part of the scene. The words were crisp. The ink looked fresh. I stared at it until my eyes watered. Then, like an idiot, I looked back at the actual laminated sheet on the wall. There was no post-it on it, just the rules. My phone buzzed again. One short vibration. I shoved it back in my pocket like it was burning me. The whispering returned, and this time it wasn't coaxing. It was irritated. You're cheating. You're not supposed to have that. You're not supposed to know. I clenched my teeth and backed away from the shed. My shoulder bumped the fence line of a grave plot, and the metal clinked softly. Immediately, the whispering stopped. The silence returned, heavy and waiting. I remembered something else from Rule 6. If you see someone you did not arrive with, do not approach them. Do not allow them to approach you. Put a solid object between you and them. I scanned the dark beyond the shed without lifting my flashlight beam too high. Indirect light only. I didn't want to shine straight into anything that could be a crack or a gap. A shape stood between two trees. Too tall, too narrow. It hadn't been there a second ago. Or maybe it had, and my brain had refused to register it. It was close enough that I could see its outline clearly. It didn't move. It just stood, angled toward me, like it was waiting for me to do the wrong thing. I backed up, and it didn't follow. Not with footsteps, but it was closer after my next blink. I don't know how else to say it. It didn't stride forward. It didn't glide. It was just closer, as if distance had been edited out. My skin went cold. The sweet smell surged again, thick as syrup. Keep walking at a steady pace. I turned and walked, fast but not running, my legs trembling with the effort of restraint. I kept the flashlight on the ground, watching my steps, because the paths were uneven and I couldn't afford to trip again. The shape stayed at the edge of my vision, not directly behind, but off to one side, keeping pace without making sound. Whenever I tried to glance at it, my eyes wanted to slide away, like looking at it was physically uncomfortable. I put stones between us whenever I could. I cut around a mausoleum smaller than the big one, keeping it solid between me and whatever that was. I heard a faint click again, closer this time like a tongue. I walked faster. The cemetery opened into another clearing, and I almost ran straight into a line of low stones that formed a boundary between sections. I stopped short, chest heaving. Ahead, the fence line was visible through the trees, a darker grid against darker night. Beyond it, the faint glow of the streetlights on the road. Not close, but there. Real light. Human light. Relief hit me so hard it made me dizzy. Then the whispering came from somewhere near the fence. Over here. It sounded like Evan. It sounded like him on a good day, annoyed at me for being slow. I froze. Rule 2. Don't answer. Don't acknowledge. Rule 6. If you see someone you did not arrive with. But what if it was Evan? What if I'd misseen? What if he was alive and calling me? My brain threw that hope at me like a rope. I took one step toward the sound. The sweet smell spiked so hard it made my eyes sting. I stopped. I forced myself to breathe. And then I saw him. Near the fence, partly obscured by a tree trunk, was a person's shape. Average height. Hoodie. Jeans. Exactly like Evan would look in this light if he was standing there. I couldn't see his face. He raised a hand slightly, like a beckon. My stomach twisted. My heart hammered. I backed up instead. The person's shape didn't move, but the tree trunk beside it had fingers on it now. Pale fingers curled around bark, too long, nails too smooth. It wasn't a person. I turned and walked again because I couldn't run and I couldn't stop, and my legs felt like wet sand. I kept the fence in sight, moving parallel, looking for a break, a sag, anything that matched south fence break near the service road. The fence was rusted but intact in most places. The spikes at the top looked dull, but I'd already felt how sharp they were when I climbed in. The whispering tried again, angry now, layered. You're taking too long. You're taking too long. You're taking too long. The same phrase Evan, whatever was wearing Evan, had said when it grabbed my wrist. Hearing it repeated made my throat go dry. I walked faster. The fence line curved and I lost sight of the road for a moment as trees thickened again. The glow of streetlights faded behind branches. My panic surged, hot and sudden. No, I wasn't going back deeper. I wasn't looping again. I started to run despite Rule 5, and immediately the air changed. It thickened like running through syrup. My legs felt heavy. The ground seemed to tilt. The flashlight beam shook and hopped, and the shadows it created started to look like moving things. I forced myself back into a walk, and the pressure eased slightly, like the cemetery approved. Fine. Fine. Steady pace. I'll do your stupid pace. Just let me out. My hand found the post in my pocket, crumpled now. I squeezed it like a stress ball. Don't look up. I didn't know why that mattered so much, but every time my eyes drifted upward, I felt that compulsion again, like something above wanted to catch my gaze. I kept my eyes down and forward, low horizon only. The fence came into clearer view again, and with it, the sound of the road. I could hear cars now. Not many, but enough. A whoosh now, and then tires on pavement. Real sound. I kept walking until I saw the first sign of a break. It wasn't a neat hole. It was a sagging section where the bottom had been pushed outward, the metal bent and bowed like someone had forced their way through and the fence had never fully recovered. There was a strip of dirt beneath it where the grass had been worn away. A service road beyond it, just a narrow gravel strip leading into the trees on the outside. South fence break. My whole body went weak with relief. Then the whispering stopped. The silence dropped in again like a curtain. The sweet smell vanished. Even the road sound seemed to dull, like someone stuffed cotton in my ears. I stopped without meaning to, feet planted a few yards from the break. Because the break was open, and the darkness beyond it looked wrong. Not its night wrong. Wrong like the mausoleum wrong. Wrong like a hole that swallows light. I stared at it, my flashlight beam trembling on the ground near the gap. Indirect. Safe. My body screamed at me to just crawl through, to get out, to let the fence scrape my back and not care. But something in me, the part that had read that rule sheet, the part that had counted breaths while a shadow hung over me, knew that open didn't always mean exit. Rule 1, if a door is open, leave it open and walk away. Rule 7, exit through the south fence break near the service road. 2 rules colliding in my head like cars. I didn't know which one was meant for this exact moment. I didn't know if the break was an exit or a mouth. And then I heard it, a soft scrape behind me, like fabric sliding over stone. I didn't look back. I could feel it though, the shift in pressure, the sense of something tall getting closer without footsteps. My hands went numb. My throat tightened. I forced myself to move. I walked to the fence break like my legs belonged to someone else. My flashlight stayed aimed at the ground, but the beam caught the bent metal and made it gleam dull. I crouched. The gap was low. I have to get on my knees and push through. I hesitated for 1 stupid second, and in that second, something brushed the back of my neck. Not a hand, not a branch. That same cold air touch like a finger made of winter. My whole body jolted. I dropped to my knees and shoved my flashlight through the gap first because I didn't want to crawl blind. The beam bounced off gravel outside and made the service road visible. It looked normal. It looked real. I shoved my shoulder onto the bent fence. The metal scraped my back through my jacket. It snagged. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood so I wouldn't make noise. My hips caught. I twisted and shoved harder. Something touched my ankle. My whole body went rigid. The touch wasn't gripping. It was a light brush like testing, like a fingertip tracing skin through fabric. I kicked backward reflexively, heel slamming into something solid that didn't feel like bone. More like wood, more like stone. The whispering came back right at my ear, furious. Don't. I didn't answer. I shoved again. The fence tore my jacket. I felt fabric rip. Then I was through. My hands hit gravel on the outside, and pain shot up my palms where the stones dug in. I scrambled forward like I was being born wrong, dragging my legs out of the gap, not caring about dignity, not caring about skin. I rolled onto my back on the service road and sucked in air so hard it hurt. I expected to see something looming over me. I expected the fence to bend and reach. I expected pale hands to curl through the gap and hook me back. Nothing happened. The fence stayed bent and still. The cemetery on the other side looked the same as it had from the road. Dark trees, dark stones, a dull shape of the fence line. The road sound returned like someone turned the volume back up. A car passed in the distance, headlights sweeping between trunks. I lay there shaking, my whole body vibrating like a guitar string. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to see what it wanted to show me. But my brain was addicted now, like it thought the phone was the only way to understand what was happening. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. The screen lit. No new notification. Just a lock screen photo. Except my lock screen photo wasn't what I'd set it as. It used to be some dumb picture of a burger from a night out because I never cared enough to change it. Now it was the rule sheet. The laminated paper on the shed wall, perfectly centered. And there was a new post-it stuck at the bottom, overlapping the edge of the sheet like someone had slapped it on last second. It said, "Let him wave." I stared until my vision blurred. My stomach rolled. I swiped up and the phone unlocked because of course it did, because the universe had decided friction was optional now. My camera roll was open by itself. The last photo, a picture I hadn't taken. It was inside the mausoleum. Not a clear shot, not a wide view, just a close-up of stone floor and the edge of a wall, like someone had pointed the camera down while moving. And in the corner of the frame, pale fingers curled over something dark and wet. My thumb hit delete without thinking. The screen asked if I was sure. My thumb hovered. Behind me, from the cemetery side of the fence, came a soft sound. Not a whisper, a click, like a tongue against teeth. My thumb hit delete again, harder. The photo vanished. The lock screen stayed changed. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and got to my feet so fast my head swam. The service road led away from the fence and toward the main road. I stumbled along it, half jogging now, because I didn't care about Rule 5 anymore. I was outside. I was on the human side. The trees thinned as I got closer to the road. The streetlight glow grew stronger. The air felt less heavy, but I still couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. When I reached the edge of the main road, the streetlights burned my eyes like sunlight after a dark movie theater. A car passed close enough that the wind of it tugged at my jacket. I wanted to throw myself into the middle of the lane just so a human would have to stop, just so someone would look at me and make this real. Instead, I stumbled onto the shoulder and bent over with my hands on my knees and puked into the gravel. It burned going up. My throat ached. My whole body shook. When I looked back, the fence line was visible through the trees. The cemetery sat there like nothing had happened, like it hadn't just eaten my friend and worn him like a puppet. No one followed me. They let me leave. That should have been the end. That should have been the story you tell once, the insane thing you survived, the thing that becomes a blurry nightmare the more time passes. But it didn't end at the road. I walked toward town like a drunk, one hand clamped around my phone in my pocket like I could crush it into silence. My other hand kept wiping my mouth because I couldn't stand the taste of bile. My palms stung where I'd scraped them on gravel and fence. My back burned where the metal had torn my jacket and probably my skin underneath. A gas station was a mile down. I could see it by the fluorescent glow. It looked like heaven. Human lights. A sign. A bathroom. A bored employee who would hate my guts but would still be real. I got there and pushed through the glass door so hard the bell above it rang like an alarm. The cashier looked up from his phone with immediate irritation. Middle-aged guy, heavy-lidded, wearing a faded polo. He opened his mouth to say something like, "We're closing soon," then saw my face and stopped. "Jesus," he said. "What happened to you?" "I need to call the police," I said, and my voice sounded wrong to my own ears, too loud, too thin. "My friend, he's in there." The cashier blinked. "In where?" "The cemetery." I snapped because the slowness made me furious. "He's in the cemetery." He went into a mausoleum. The cashier's expression shifted, not into concern, but into something wary. Like he'd heard enough weird shit in his life to know when to keep distance. "You want something?" he asked. "No," I said too fast. "No, I'm not. Look at me. I'm not." He stared at my shaking hands, the dirt on my knees, the torn jacket. "Sit down," he said, and he pointed at the little plastic chairs by the coffee machine. "Don't bleed on anything." "I'm not bleeding," I said, even though I wasn't sure. He slid his phone away and picked up the landline behind the counter. For a second, I thought he was going to call someone else, like an ambulance or a manager, and my panic spiked. Then he dialed. "Yeah," he said when someone answered. "I got a guy here, says his friend's in the cemetery. He looks messed up." He glanced at me again. "He says mausoleum." Something in his tone changed when he said that last word, like it meant more than it should. He listened, then nodded slowly, even though whoever was on the other end couldn't see him. "Okay," he said. "Yeah, I'll keep him here." He hung up. I stared at him. "They're coming." He didn't answer right away. He walked around the counter, came closer, and his eyes flicked over me like he was checking for weapons, for signs of fight, for blood. "Sit," he said again, firmer. I sat because my legs were finally realizing they'd been holding me up on pure adrenaline. The chair was cold plastic. It stuck to the back of my thighs through my jeans. The cashier stood near the counter again, but he didn't go back to his phone. He watched the front windows. He watched the road. "You been in that cemetery before?" he asked, and his voice was different now. Less annoyed, more careful. "No," I said. "Evan has, I think. He likes sneaking places." The cashier's jaw tightened slightly. "You read the sign?" he asked. "What sign?" He exhaled through his nose like he was irritated at the answer. "Never mind." I swallowed hard. "My friend's in there," I said again because my brain kept rebooting to that fact like it was all that mattered. "He's dead. Or something happened." The cashier stared at the coffee machine like he didn't want to look at me. "Cops will go check," he said. I shook my head violently. "No, you don't understand." He snapped his eyes to me, then sharp. "I understand enough," he said, and his voice had an edge now. "You don't go in there after dark." "I didn't know," I said. "I didn't. There was a rule sheet." His eyes flicked up. "Rule sheet." "Yeah," I said, and my mouth went dry. "On the maintenance shed. 7 rules." It said. He held up a hand, cutting me off. "Don't recite that shit in here," he said, and he sounded almost scared for a second, like speaking the rules out loud in the wrong place mattered. I stared at him. "What?" He didn't answer. He just watched the road again. A few minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the gas station windows. A patrol car pulled in, then another. Doors opened. 2 officers came in, 1 male, 1 female, both with that tired look cops get when they're expecting a drunk and end up with something worse. The male officer approached me cautiously. "You the one who called?" I nodded too hard. "Yes, my friend." "Slow down," he said. "What's your name?" I told him. He asked Evan's name. He asked what we were doing. I told him the truth, mostly, minus the parts that made me sound insane. I said Evan went into a mausoleum and didn't come out. I said I got scared and ran. I said I thought something was wrong. The female officer took notes. Her pen scratched on the pad. Her face stayed neutral. The male officer's radio crackled softly. He touched it, listened, then nodded. "We'll go check," he said. "Stay here." "No," I said immediately, panic flaring. "I'm coming with you." He shook his head. "No, you're not." "I know where it is." I lied because I didn't. "Not exactly." He leaned closer, voice low. "Listen, you're shaken up. You're not going back in there. You're going to sit right here with the clerk. Understand?" His tone wasn't angry, but it wasn't negotiable. It was the tone of someone trying to keep a situation contained. I stared at his face, and suddenly I had a sick thought. What if the cemetery didn't care who went in? What if it just chose? What if it took Evan because Evan stepped inside, and it would take whoever stepped inside next? "Don't go," I said, my voice cracked. "Please." The female officer glanced up at me, and for a split second her neutral mask slipped. Something like recognition flickered in her eyes. Something like resignation. "We have to," she said quietly, and then her mask snapped back on. "Stay here." They left. The clerk watched them go with his jaw clenched. When the door shut behind them, the bell rang again, bright and cheerful like a joke. I sat there shaking. My hands wouldn't stop moving. I kept rubbing my palms on my jeans like I could wipe off what I'd touched. The clerk poured himself coffee and didn't drink it. He just held the cup like he needed something warm his hands. "You ever see them go in there before?" I asked him because I couldn't stand the waiting. He stared at the coffee, then at me. "Sometimes they have to," he said. And sometimes they come back mad as hell," he said, and his voice was flat now, like he'd said this before. "Sometimes they come back quiet." "What does that mean?" He shook his head slowly. "You don't want to know." My phone buzzed again. I flinched so hard the chair squeaked. The clerk's eyes snapped to my pocket. "Don't," he said immediately. I stared at him. "What?" "Don't pull it out," he said, and his voice was firm, almost angry. "You heard me." I swallowed. "How do you know?" His face tightened. "Because you're not the first dumbass who came in here shaking and talking about that place," he said. "And every time, they got their phone out and showed me something they shouldn't have, and then they started acting weird, like they were listening to someone else." My skin went cold. I didn't touch my phone. Minutes crawled. The fluorescent lights hummed. The coffee machine gurgled. A drunk guy wandered in, saw the clerk's face and the empty chairs and the tension, and quietly bought cigarettes and left without talking. Then the cops came back. Both of them. The male officer's jaw was tight. His face was pale under the harsh lights. The female officer's hands shook slightly when she reached for the counter to steady herself, and she looked pissed off in a way that didn't fit a normal call. The male officer avoided my eyes for a moment, then forced himself to look at me. "Your friend's not in there," he said. I stared at him. "Yes, he is." "We searched," he said, clipped. "We checked the structure you described. We checked surrounding plots. We checked paths. There's no one there." "That's bullshit," I snapped, rage surging because denial felt like someone stepping on Evan's memory. He's there. I saw him. The female officer's eyes flicked to the clerk, then back to me. What did you see? She asked. I hesitated. If I said a thing was holding him open and waving with him, they'd either think I was insane or they'd look at each other like they already knew and pretend they didn't. I swallowed. He went in. I said. He didn't come out. Then he was behind me. Then I saw. My voice broke. He was hurt. He was wrong. The male officer's mouth tightened. You said you ran? He said. You said you climbed the fence. Which fence did you climb out? The break, I said. On the south side. Service road. His eyes sharpened. How'd you know about that? My mouth went dry. I realized too late what I'd revealed. There was a rules sheet, I said again. On the maintenance shed. The clerk made a low sound in his throat, like a warning. The male officer stared at me hard, like he was trying to decide whether to push further or shut it down. Finally, he said, We're going to take a statement. Go back, I said, and my voice went desperate. Go back and look again. We already did, he snapped, and for the first time his frustration bled through. There's nothing there. I shook my head violently. I saw him. The female officer's expression softened just slightly, but her eyes stayed sharp. Are you sure you didn't get turned around? She asked. You said you looped. You still here. Looped. She realized what she'd said. Her face tightened. She glanced at the male officer. He exhaled hard. Let's go in the office, he said to her. He turned back to me. You're coming with us, he said. We're going to the station. You're going to tell us exactly what happened. Do you understand? I nodded numbly, because what else could I do? As they guided me toward the door, my phone buzzed again. The clerk's eyes snapped to my pocket like it was a gun. Don't, he mouthed, silent. I didn't. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. The patrol car lights flashed over the gas station windows, making everything stutter red and blue. The cemetery was a dark smear of trees in the distance. From here, it looked harmless. From here, it looked like any fenced-off patch of dead ground. They put me in the back of the car, not handcuffed, but the door didn't open from the inside. The seat was hard plastic. The smell of stale sweat and vinyl made my stomach roll again. As we drove, I stared out the window, watching streetlights slide past. Human world. Human rules. Stop signs. Speed limits. Normal. And yet, the pressure in my ears never fully lifted, like the cemetery had left a thumbprint inside my head. At the station, they sat me in an interview room with a metal table and a chair bolted to the floor. The lights were too bright. The walls were painted that bland, institutional beige, meant to make people feel calm. It didn't work. They asked questions. I answered. They asked about Evan, where he lived, his parents, his job, his habits. They asked why we went to the cemetery. I said the truth. Evan wanted a thrill. I followed. I tried to leave. He didn't. They asked if Evan had enemies, if anyone might have hurt him, if we'd been drinking, if we'd been using drugs. I said no to all of it. At some point, the male officer stepped out and the female officer stayed with me. She watched me for a long moment, then leaned forward slightly. You said there was a rules sheet, she said quietly. I nodded. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back. Did you read it? She asked. Yes, I whispered. Her jaw tightened. How many rules? She asked, like she needed to confirm something specific. 7, I said. She exhaled slowly. Did it say anything about looking up? She asked, and her voice was careful, like she was stepping around a bomb. My stomach dropped. Yes, I whispered. There was a post-it. Her eyes widened a fraction. She swallowed. Did you look up? She asked. I shook my head. Not when it mattered. Her shoulders sagged slightly, like relief. Then she straightened and her face hardened again. Listen, she said, and her tone turned sharp, urgent. I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to do it. You're going to go home. You're going to lock your doors. You're going to turn your phone off. Not silent. Off. You're going to sleep with a light on. And if you hear someone outside, you don't go check. You call us. You understand? I stared at her, heart hammering. Why are you telling me this? She shook her head once, like she regretted speaking at all. Because you got out, she said, and the way she said out made my skin crawl. And sometimes it doesn't like that. My throat went dry. My friend, her eyes flashed. Your friend is missing, she said, firm, official voice snapping back into place. We're going to search tomorrow in daylight with additional units. That's what I'm saying on record. Do you understand? Istir de her. He's dead, I whispered. Her jaw clenched. I know what you think you saw, she said, and her voice shook slightly on the word think. But I need you to stop talking about it like that. Not here. The male officer came back in then, and the moment broke. She sat back, expression neutral again. He resumed the questions, more procedural now. Eventually, they let me go because they didn't have grounds to keep me and because, honestly, what would they charge me with? Trespassing? Panic? Surviving? I walked home at dawn because I couldn't stand getting in a car with anyone. I wanted to be on the street, under lights, where the world had witnesses. The sky was turning gray, the kind of cheap gray that makes everything look washed out. Birds started chirping in the trees like it was any other morning. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it until my legs stopped shaking. Then I turned my phone off. For a few minutes, the silence felt like relief. Like I'd shut a door. I showered with the water scalding hot, trying to scrub the smell of stone and sweet air off my skin. Dirt swirled down the drain. My jacket lay in a heap on the bathroom floor, torn and stained. I try not to look at it too long. When I got out, the apartment felt wrong. Not haunted, just exposed. Like the walls were thinner than I remembered. I sat on my bed and stared at my hands. The scrapes on my palms were red and raw. Tiny gravel bits were lodged in the skin. I picked them out one by one with shaking fingers, because focusing on pain was easier than focusing on Evan's open chest. At some point, I fell asleep without meaning to, sitting upright. My head snapped forward, and I woke up with my neck stiff and my mouth dry. The room was dim. Afternoon light through the blinds. For a split second, I didn't remember. Then it hit me again like a truck. Evan. The mausoleum. The wave. My stomach rolled, and I rushed to the bathroom and puked again, dry this time just bile and spit. When I came back out, my phone was on the bed. I froze. I hadn't turned it back on. I hadn't touched it. It was on the bed anyway, screen dark, like it had always been there. My chest tightened. My skin went cold. I didn't pick it up. I backed away from it like it was a snake. Then it buzzed. Not a gentle vibration. A hard, insistent buzz that went on, like an alarm someone forgot to turn off. My whole body locked. The buzzing stopped. The screen lit. It was on. The lock screen was the rules sheet again. The post-it at the bottom wasn't "Let him wave" anymore. It said, "You looked." My throat closed. My eyes burned. I didn't. I whispered, and the sound of my own voice in the apartment made it feel smaller. The phone buzzed once more. A new post-it appeared on the lock screen, layered over the first, like someone stacking warnings. Don't look up. I squeezed my eyes shut hard, like that could protect me. When I opened them, the phone screen was dark again. I didn't touch it. I grabbed my jacket off the floor with 2 fingers like it was contaminated and shoved it into a trash bag. I shoved the trash bag into the closet. I didn't know what else to do with the urge to get rid of anything that had been in that cemetery. Then I remembered the post-it in my pocket. My stomach dropped. I dug into my jeans pocket with shaking fingers and pulled it out. It was crumpled and dirty, but the ink was still there. Don't look up. Only now there was more writing underneath, smaller like someone had added it after. In case he comes back wrong, don't say his name. My hands went numb. I stared at it until my eyes watered. I didn't remember that line being there before. I threw the post-it into the sink like it was alive and turned the faucet on full blast, as if water could erase ink and fear. It got soaked and stuck to the porcelain, the words smearing slightly but still readable. Still there. Still true. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet and tried to breathe. I kept thinking about the moment Evan appeared behind me in the cemetery. The way he'd said, "I'm here." The way his hand had been cold. The way his voice had been flat, in case he comes back wrong. My brain started throwing up images of Evan at my door. Evan calling my name from the hallway. Evan texting me from that phone. I shut my eyes and pressed my palms against them until I saw stars. Time passed in fragments after that. Evan's parents called. I didn't answer at first, because what the hell do you say? Your son got hollowed out by a thing in a mausoleum? Eventually I did answer, because not answering made me a coward in a way I couldn't stand. I said Evan was missing. I said we'd been somewhere we weren't supposed to be, and he disappeared. I said the police were searching. I let them scream at me. I let them call me names. I deserved all of it and none of it, both at once. The police did search in daylight. They brought dogs. They brought more officers. They walked the paths and checked structures. They found nothing. No blood, no body, no Totenfabrik, no sign that anyone had died inside a mausoleum. They found a mausoleum door closed. That detail made my stomach twist because I knew I'd left it open. They brought me out there in the afternoon with the sun up, with birds chirping and everything looking small and harmless. "Is this it?" they asked, pointing at the mausoleum. I stared at it and felt cold run through my veins. The stone looked the same. The family name above the door was the same worn letters. But the door was shut tight, sealed like it had never been opened. I stepped closer, hands trembling. I tried to point at the crack where I'd seen fingers, where Evan had slipped inside. "There," I said, voice hoarse. It was open. The male officer, same one from the night, watched me carefully. "Try it," he said. I didn't want to. Every cell in my body screamed no. But Evan's parents were there, standing behind the police tape, faces hollow with grief and anger, staring at me like I was either a liar or a murderer. So I tried it. I grabbed the stone handle and pulled. The door didn't budge. It was locked, not with a padlock, not with a chain, just locked, like it was a wall. I stared at it, confused, and then my eyes caught something on the stone beside the door. A faint square outline, like residue from tape, where a post-it might have been. My mouth went dry. The female officer stood beside me now, close enough that only I could hear her. "Don't," she whispered, and her tone was sharp. I swallowed. It was open. I hissed back. She stared at the door, then at me. "I believe you," she whispered, and that should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Because if she believed me, it meant she knew it was possible. It meant she knew we weren't dealing with a normal missing person. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Did you tell anyone about the rules?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "No." Her eyes narrowed. "Good," she said. "Keep it that way." The search ended with nothing. Evan became a missing person case. Flyers went up. People posted his face on social media. Friends shared memories. Strangers speculated. Some people said he probably ran away. Some said he probably got drunk and fell somewhere. Some said I killed him and hid the body. I wanted to scream at all of them. I wanted to grab them by the shoulders and drag them to the fence and make them climb in and see what I saw. Then I'd remember the wave, and I'd remember how easily the cemetery folded the paths, and I'd shut up. Because I knew, deep down, that the cemetery didn't need me to drag anyone in. It could wait. The worst part wasn't even the guilt, though that was a constant ache, a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. The worst part was that the rules followed me, not in a literal laminated sheet way, in little moments, in sensory cues. If I heard whispering in a crowded place, someone talking behind me in line at a grocery store, I'd freeze, blood cold, fighting the urge to answer. If I got turned around in a parking garage, saw the same sign twice, I'd stop and count my breaths with my eyes down like a ritual, like prayer. If I smelled something sweet, perfume on a stranger, flowers in a lobby, incense from a neighbor's apartment, my body would tense and my steps would go measured and steady, like running would summon something. And the don't look up thing, that stuck. I'd catch myself staring at the ground in public, afraid to lift my gaze to a building's upper windows. I'd walk under trees and feel that compulsion tug at my neck, like something above wanted me to meet it. I'd swallow hard and keep my eyes forward. One night, a week after, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. for no reason. The room was dark. My mouth was dry. My heart was pounding like I'd been running. I lay still, listening. The apartment was silent. Then, from the hallway outside my door, I heard a soft sound. A scrape, like fabric sliding over stone. My whole body went cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stared at the ceiling without lifting my head because I couldn't help it. My eyes were already up, and the fear hit me like a punch. Don't look up. I shut my eyes hard. The scrape came again, closer. Then the whispering. Not loud, not clear, just fragments like that first night. Hey, open up. My name. Spoken the way Evan used to say it when he wanted something. My throat tightened. My chest burned. Tears pooled in my eyes, hot and humiliating. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I didn't even look at the door. I counted my breaths in my head because Rule 3 had saved me once and I didn't have anything else. 1, 2. On 5, the whispering stopped. On 8, the pressure in the hallway shifted like something leaning closer. On 12, there was a soft click. On 15, I heard a faint sound that made my stomach flip. A wave, not visual, auditory, like fingers brushing fabric in a slow rhythm. The whispering returned, softer now, almost amused. Come on, just look. My eyes stayed shut. My hands clenched under the blanket until my nails bit skin. 30 breaths. Silence. Then, very faintly, the sound of footsteps. Real footsteps this time, fading away down the hallway. I couldn't tell if they were real because the sound was normal or real because something wanted me to believe they were. I didn't get up. I didn't check. I didn't call the police because what would I say? Something waved outside my door. I stayed in bed until daylight. When I finally got the courage to open my front door, there was nothing in the hallway, except a small yellow square stuck to my doormat. A Post-it. My hands went numb as I picked it up. The words were in the same messy black ink. We let you leave. Under it, smaller. Don't make US regret it. I dropped it like it was hot. I slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. I sat on the floor with my back against it and laughed once, sharp and broken, because what else do you do when reality starts sending you notes? After that, I moved. I broke my lease. I told my landlord it was an emergency. I didn't give details. I packed my stuff in 2 days and left most of my furniture behind because I didn't want to be in that apartment long enough to say goodbye properly. I moved across town, then out of town, then to a different state eventually. It didn't matter. The rules were inside me now. The cemetery didn't have to follow me physically. It had already moved in. I tried therapy. I tried medication. I tried drinking until I couldn't think. None of it made the memory go away. It only dulled it until it popped back up sharper, like a knife you forget is in your pocket until you sit down wrong. Sometimes I'd get calls from Evan's number. I blocked it. It would call again from a different number, but the caller ID would show Evan's name anyway, like the system wanted me to know who it was supposed to be. I stopped answering unknown numbers. Then I stopped answering any numbers. Then I stopped turning my phone on unless I had to. Evan's case went cold. People stopped searching. His parents aged 10 years in one. I saw his mom once in a grocery store months later, by accident. She looked at me like she wanted to hit me, like she wanted to beg me, like she wanted to crawl inside my skull and see what I'd seen. I couldn't hold her gaze. My eyes dropped to the floor automatically. Don't look up. She walked past me without a word. The smell of her perfume hit me as she passed, sweet and floral, and my whole body went rigid. I walked out of the store and sat in my car, shaking until it stopped. Every so often, usually when I'm tired or stressed, I hear whispering again. Not loud, not clear, just close enough that my brain leans toward it. Sometimes it sounds like Evan. Sometimes it sounds like me. The most fucked up part is that I can't even fully hate Evan anymore. I tried. I tried to make him the villain in my head because it would have been easier. He was reckless. He dragged me in. He deserved it. That's what people say when they want the universe to make sense. If Evan deserved it, then it was fair. If it was fair, then it won't happen to someone who doesn't deserve it. But the wave wasn't punishment. It wasn't justice. It was play. It was a thing wearing a person and pretending to be friendly. I still don't know what it wanted from me. I don't know why it let me crawl out under that fence. I don't know why it didn't just pull my ankle and drag me back into the dark like it did with Evan. Sometimes I think it let me leave because I followed the rules just enough. Because I didn't answer the whispers. Because I didn't look up when the shadow hung over me. Because I walked steady when the sweet smell hit. Sometimes I think it let me leave because it wanted a witness. Because it wanted me to carry the fear out into the world like a virus. To infect other people with the idea that there's a place you can't map and can't reason with. A place that writes you notes and where's your friends. And sometimes, on the worst nights, I think it let me leave because it hasn't decided I'm done yet. Because leaving and escaping aren't the same thing. Because once it knows your name, distance doesn't mean what you think it means. No one followed me that night. They didn't chase me over the fence. They didn't spill out into the streetlights. They didn't drag me back. They let me leave. I still don't know why.